I still love that intro. How's everyone doing? Welcome to Diabolical Souls Presents, where we are doing Arcane Season 2, Episode 1. And going back to what works, and I got the panel with me. But before we get to it, if you guys can hit that like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. Leave a comment after, it'd be even better. And also hit that notification bell. This one's for you, Badger. And then, of course, subscribe to all these lovely people on the panel here. And this guy in the middle, let's get him to 500. So let's introduce everyone before we get into this. And Platoon, sir, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. I enjoyed that opening music video. It was very much like watching an episode of Arcane Season 2. It was great, yeah. No, well, looking forward to this. It was a mixed bag of an episode.
God, it's been so long since I heard your voice. I miss it.
And it begins. Nadia, sir, how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. Yeah, like Platoon, there's some things I liked about this episode, some other things that I very much did not like, and keen to get into it with you fellas. And ladies.
Yes. And
ladies, sorry, plural.
Well, ladies, because, Leona. Leon, how's it going, buddy? Thanks for joining the panel. How are you?
Frankly, I'm very happy to be here, and I've got my whiskey ready because I feel like I'm going to be in extreme pain by the time we're finished with this review. So I just want to say, Nick, thanks for being here, buddy. I'm going to need a friend.
Got you, bro.
The man with the tank top. Look at this guy. Nick, how are you doing, buddy? Oh, wow.
There we go.
Here
Get him to 500, please.
I get arms.
Yes.
I'll be back in a sec. I gotta go change into my Leona outfit.
No, you don't.
I know this show is missing some manpower, so I brought the manpower to the stream. No offense to the bros out here. Just sorry.
Interesting. Nadia, how are you?
I'm delighted to talk about this with you guys. Thank you for including me. I'm very excited. This was not a good episode for me, but we'll get into it.
And then the man of the hour. This man's going to be screaming and yelling at clouds and anything that walks near him. Goodwin, how are you doing? And are you ready to do this tonight?
Oh, I can assure you there are no clouds anywhere in my vicinity. The alert must have gone out. They're not even messing with me. Yeah, I'm going to be a bit spicy on this one. This some shit's what this is.
Yeah, I kind of figured on that. And of course, we got our artist, Zach. How are you doing, Zach?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a mixed bag with this episode, honestly. I enjoy it, but I have a lot of things that honestly, I thought the decisions they chose to do were the wrong decisions, actually. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. For this episode, I'm going to have pencils only for this one, and I'll have the inks for this piece for next week. And then I'm going to have, I'm going to do it that way. So every week I'll have full pencils of the current episode and then the inks from the previous episode until the last episode, which will be a much bigger piece.
Unacceptable. Work harder.
Oh, when you see the pieces that I'm doing for Arcane, I think you guys will understand.
Do you think this episode justifies that level of art and appreciation and work?
I mean, this is Arcane. I mean, regardless, the animation's still good, and despite the choices that they made, which I disagree with sometimes, I still think it is a good enough show so far from the first 3 episodes.
Zach, this is why I love you, buddy.
Yeah. Couple things before we dive into this review. First of all, we're streaming live on Rumble for the first time, so thank you to everyone on Rumble. And look at that, Tomby is watching on Rumble. Thank you, Tomby. I appreciate that. Quick hello to everyone in the chat, and I mean quick. Gord King, thank you for dropping by and saying a quick hi before you got to go. Hostie's in the house. What's up, Hostie? Jana, thank you for joining us. Jana. Rachel, hi, Rachel. Thanks for joining us. Rhino's in the house. Daxnar's in the house. We have the OG himself, Eraserhead. And quickly scrolling through, we got the T Pro 83 here. Yes, thank you for joining us. Quickly scrolling through the other OG. Let's fucking Gooch. Yes, let's go. Thank you, Gemma. Thanks for Michael Bancroft's in the house. What's up there, Bancroft? Thanks for joining us, brother. I appreciate it.
Damn.
Yeah, awesome HPT is here. Thank you for joining us.
I think he's meeting Nick.
Yeah, we got the big ship here. Turd
Me,
Ferguson. Turk Ferguson, not a great 3 episodes following up an amazing season. We're gonna get into it. Yeah. Valiant Goats here. Hosty for $5. The whole gang's on stream except me. Sorry I can't be here for these Arcane streams. Yeah, we miss you, there, Hosty. You're one of the originals on the first season. So thank you for the $5 there, Hosty. Appreciate it. And then Boosh is here. We got Zax. What's up, brother? And if I missed anyone, there's a whole buckload of people here. I'm quickly scrolling down. We're just watching. You're watching on Rumble. Thank you, early on. And then I feel like we're kind of catching up here. Appreciate it. Okay, good. All right. Episode 1 of season 2. Heavy is the crown. We know the animations from Fortiche, a French animation production company. They like to use Blender. They like to go at 60 frames per second. We know all of these things. The backgrounds and the digital sets are all done and rendered by digital paints. We know they use the steampunk style for a lot of the props that they use in this series, and the art style is kind of a blend of anime with cartoon, like North American cartoon comic book style with fantasy art stuff. Like it kind of blended together, and you get Arcane. So we're gonna get into this. We reviewed it last week. They ended off with Jinx launching the missile and going into the window. We start off with everyone in kind of a haze. Everyone's kind of searching and trying to figure their wits. This surprise attack on the council meeting, and we see Jace and Mel are the first ones that we see, and they're not even got a scratch on them, which.
Yeah, this already had me going Kathy Bates for Misery words. That's not what happened.
I'm immediately going to push back on this because I knew this would come up. I knew that people were going to get upset. Like, oh, they walked away without scratch. Here's the dealio. Here's why I accept this with literally 0 issues. First of all, what happens with Mel later is way more egregious than her surviving this.
Again, I'm worried about episode 1.
Yeah. Well, no. This is still in episode 1. But no, my old man was a Nom, and he told me this story. And it's a haunting yet beautiful story where he and 5 other dudes were in a canvas tent together. Live grenade flies into the tent, goes off. All 5 of them walk away with not even a scratch. No deaths, no scratch. The explosion and the shrapnel somehow miraculously did not affect any of those 5 men. Now, he contributes to the fact that there's a dude in the barracks reading the Bible and that it was basically an act of God. However you want to describe it, the fact is, it's possible, it happens. Here we got 3 dudes dead and 1 severely injured. If you invoke
the supernatural, this survival.
All I'm saying is this happened. My example happened in real life, so I'm not going to knock it.
This wasn't a frag grenade; it was a missile that was locked out, and the direction of travel is right into the back of her head. I don't recall a lot of stories about guys getting hit in the head by artillery shells, and it just bounced off me. It's fine, bro.
Could it be a power that's not displayed yet?
Yes, the power of plot armor is what it is.
Well, in the games, there's certain characters that, the abilities come out progressing as you go through the games. It could be that one of them has an ability that they don't know of yet. Like
the theory I've heard is pretty much along those lines. I think I'm right in saying, at least I've heard people saying, it's been a while since I've seen it, but the final shot from Mel in Arcane Season 1, you see the armor that she has seems to glow. And people are leaning on the glowing armor. It would literally be plot armor in that case, so it doesn't really escape the problem. But she may have an armor that prevents her from apparently taking any damage whatsoever, and also those people around her whatsoever, and it also kicks in later. I'm willing to accept there might be explanations for this. I don't necessarily think it's a good start. I don't think it's very satisfying to know that your main characters can't die. And I don't think it's encouraging when it seems like there are entirely meta reasons for none of these characters dying, which is that, as far as I understand anyway, Riot has, since Arcane Season 1, decided that Arcane is part of canon. It's part of the same continuity as the games. So it's officially canonized at this point. And that means, as far as I know, that means it's serving as a prequel. So what we are doing here is looking at a prequel where effectively none of the main characters of the game and none of the main characters who will be brought into the game will probably die in this season because they won't let that happen. So they'll go to great lengths to ensure that doesn't happen. If that's magical back armor, that's one thing. If it's characters making stupid decisions when they should just pull a trigger, it's another thing. So I just think that I can see explanations for her surviving. I'm just not very satisfied that everybody survived.
See, my issue actually is that it's not the fact that she was alive. It was the fact that she wasn't even injured by it.
Yeah.
That was my thing. You could go ahead and have protection. All right, I can understand that because if you're trying to like keep it to the lore and or whatever for the game, make it like, you know, back and forth related. But I mean, like, dude, hurt them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, give them something. Like, take her legs. You know, like blow her arm off. Something. You know, the fact that not a single scratch happened is a little frustrating.
It's also a very selective explosion that only seems to explosions only affect old people, I guess, because all the young people are fine except for one guy who some rope land on him.
This is like an unstable piece of equipment that you've seen what it was capable of in the first season, and she just blew this out of a missile launcher. Like, if it literally blew a hole through the crater of that building, and only those people died, and the rest were just unscathed by it, I'm like, nah.
Yeah. So this was if what you're trying to do is set up a conflict where young and experienced people are now in charge, and you have one elder that's leading them in a certain directions or whatever. I understand what you're trying to achieve. You are doing it in a terrible way.
Mm-hmm.
So how long before I can tell you guys I told you so? Just throwing that out there. What did I say literally at the end of the last review? That Mel was going to live.
Oh, yeah. No. What we said was it would be a bad decision to have her live. And I just want to leave this as it is a bad decision.
Everyone on the panel said, no, Leon, she's going to die.
She should have.
We hope she
Again, the missile is hitting her in the back of the head. But now, bro, it's fine.
I'm saying
he had a guardian angel magic item from the game that brought her back to life. So
yes.
She's not even in the game. Hosty made that in the.
She's not. She's not.
Have there not been leaks though suggesting that she will be added to the game?
Yes, yeah, they have been suggesting that she'll be added, but from what my understanding is, by living with a gaming nerd, there's a ability in the game that creates like a shield. She'll have that ability where it's like a huge shield
barrier
that can protect herself and whoever's around her.
Then don't even have a season because there's no stakes.
I think that would be my unfortunate prediction would be that, no one currently in the game will die, and no one who will be in the game in the next couple of years will die either. So that includes Mel. I don't think Ambessa is in the game, is she? But she probably will be at some point.
No,
she is. Oh, so she's probably going to survive as well. Yeah, I want to be proven wrong. I really do. Maybe they'll fuck some continuity up. I want people to die. Death is an important part of writing, and you can't just kill off ancillary characters and say that you've got the job done, which is what they attempt to do here. To be fair to the show, they do kill off important people. It's not like they don't kill anyone. Obviously, here we see Caitlyn's mother is gone.
Yep.
Caitlyn's mother, at some point between seasons, has invented an entire air filtration system.
Yes.
We'll get there.
So can I ask you a question about that mentality, though?
Yeah.
So I definitely agree that obviously characters dying does raise stakes and have stakes, but I don't think that's the only way to have stakes. Compare it to One Piece, which is a literary triumph. They very rarely kill off characters. It's been going for 24 years or something, 26 years. So I don't necessarily know that's necessary for stakes. You can do other writing.
There are other ways to drum up stakes, but the problem becomes, and it's a problem with all prequels. I made this point on my show on Monday, which is that I use Solo as the example of the problem that prequels often have. So Solo, you know that Han and Chewie can't die because they are alive throughout all of the original trilogy. Whenever that film goes out of its way to put them in danger, and them being in danger is the point of that scene, there's not really any tension there. The show's wasting time pretending there is tension when we know there can't be, because we know they're going to survive. But it still wastes its time doing that. The problem prequels like that have is when they think having characters fighting as though they can die when we know they can't is dramatically satisfying, as opposed to having them in various conflict situations and standoffs where the thing you're learning is their psychology, their relationship, something Arcane Season 1 did really well. I think you could go back and watch Arcane Season 1 knowing that neither Vi nor Jinx are going to die, and you're still going to care about their interactions, because them fighting isn't really the point of those interactions. It's what they say to each other, it's how they act, it's their priorities, it's all the rest of this stuff. But already across the first 3 episodes of Season 2, we've had people fighting, people been put in grave danger, and if they keep doing that, and the danger is the point of it, and none of them are going to die, and we know they're not going to die, then that's not satisfying, and that isn't stakes. So you're right. There are other ways to do it.
I was just curious what your thoughts were, because I was going to make the same argument about their psychology, their mentality, things like that. So, no, we're good.
And that was the problem with Umpire Strikes Back. Like, and going back to what Platoon was saying, Han was supposed to die in Umpire Strikes Back, but because he was such a loved character, and the writers were convincing George, no, you got to bring him back. You got to bring him back. They brought him back for Return of the Jedi, and it was I felt like it was kind of a mistake. I think it would have hit a little harder with the loss of Han, but I mean, it is what it is. I agree with you totally. You kill off a character that really wasn't significant in the first season, the mom, and then like the problem with this first episode. First of all, this music montage drove me up the flipping wall.
Hard agree.
It's trying to bring the somber mood. You're supposed to feel like some empathy. You're supposed to get into this dark place, and you don't. It feels kind of the animation doesn't hit, and it just feels kind of.
I would actually. Well, it feels like a music video.
Yeah, well, that's the music. I think the animation. I mean, that pencil and charcoal style around everything else makes a bit of sense, because again, she's not everything outside of her and kind of, you know, her mom and all that stuff is just things that happen, and there's no real detail. It's how you're experiencing her. Agree. The overwrought song that's being used definitely grates and turns it into a music video.
Agreed.
Go ahead, Nadia.
I felt the music made it felt very stale during this montage.
Yes, it was flat. It was very flat. I felt like
emotion behind it.
Yeah, and I felt like this was an AHA music video for some reason. I was just like, all I could think of was like,
don't insult AHA in that fashion. So,
yeah, but this has been done numerous times, and I get what they're trying to accomplish here, and they're kind of like speeding through some time here by doing this. And trust me, in the first 3 episodes, the time jumps with the music on montages is driving me up the wall. And there's a couple other things I'm going to bring up, but I don't like it. And I don't like how you're limping in. You just had this cliffhanger, and Leon, we're going to talk about it now. You had a cliffhanger, and it feels like these writers don't know how to continue after they like a season break or an episode where they do this massive cliffhanger. And we saw that in Penguin, where Sophia had what do you call that one tool and crowbars. Think that's what I'm thinking of. She had the crowbar, and they cut it off, and then the next episode was just flat. It didn't capture them. It just didn't hit. The same thing with this. You ended with a cliffhanger, and you got this. Everyone survives. You killed off like minor characters that don't matter, and you're trying to like make it all somber and moody. It's like you should have like kicked it into high gear. I think for this, you should have taken the beginning from episode 2 and put it into this, and then gone into this moment. That is just my opinion, but your guys' thoughts on it.
There's a very the pacing is very bizarre in this episode. It's slow, then it's oh my god we're in a hurry, then it's slow, then it's oh my god we're in a hurry, and for no real reason. I mean, I think you should linger on something like this. Okay, where it's lost and everything, everybody's kind of taking a break or whatever. Except that it only seems to be her in this world that is taking a break, and everybody else is in a rush, and yet she catches up awfully fast. And it just there's kind of this jarring moment, and then I mean there's some real problematic scenes after this. But again, I thought the animation, what they're trying to achieve, and the visual style they're using would have worked. I think they undermine it with the song and the pacing.
Well, real quick, because Gooch, you brought up cliffhangers, and I've found this to be, I think this is a problem with the advent of streaming as a whole, because the problem you described, I mean, you point out Penguin as well, has happened with so many streaming products. I remember we was watching we were watching primetime TV back in the day. You're watching X-Files, you're watching Supernatural, whatever. You get a season finale that's a cliffhanger. You've got 3 months, give or take, and they pick up, and they either pick up usually, like you were saying, well into actually what happened after the cliffhanger, and they sort of slow roll and bait you into, hey, here's what happened after that cliffhanger throughout the course of the next coming season. We're not seeing that in a lot of streaming properties because it takes, instead of 3 months or 6 months or whatnot to get the next season, we're waiting 2 years. I think that the problem with this episode is that they are really trying to remind you how sad and how depressed you should feel. Like, they're driving it home to such a degree it's almost comical. And maybe it would hit harder if this came out 3 months after season 1, like a primetime TV show would. But because of 2 years, I there's too much of a gap there. I'm not feeling these emotions, and them trying to drag it out for 20 plus minutes, it just gets pretentious.
That might be part of it. I tend to think, though, that actually it's just a case that they've made the wrong, effectively economic choice with the weight they're giving this moment in the script. This is all of this stuff that we're getting in. This is all like pre-credit stuff as well, like pre-title slate stuff. This is the opening montage, effectively, of the episode. This is covering the most important setup beats in the entire script, and it's doing it principally via music video exposition and then snapshots like we're getting here with some of the most on-the-nose dialogue in this entire season, which is a problem. Like, this very line here, I think, this should tell you what the stakes are. And this isn't me telling you what the stakes are. This is Mel telling you what the stakes are, but it's indistinguishable from me telling you because it's not really living within the universe. She says, she was a great woman, a good friend. I don't know how we'll face this crisis without her. And then the next line is, we were charged with imposing order, but we were asleep at our posts. How many more counselors must be blown to bits before we act? I am not comfortable trusting our fates to chance. Our healing can only begin once Jinx is brought to justice, etc. Like, that's like blurb material. That's not dialogue. But they had to compress it in this way because they're saving all of the time in episode 1 for this massive memorial fight scene that comes later, which is just silly. I mean, I actually don't think that entire scene needs to exist, for one thing. But because you are saving all of your time for that big fight scene, all of the important character work is having to be compressed at the beginning. So it's not necessarily the problem picking up after a cliffhanger. It's that they think it's more exciting to get to a fight scene. And all we need from character is these snapshots. That's the problem.
If I'm being honest, it was I said it last time, the last episode, like months ago. I really thought that Mel was, I believe that's her name. Yeah, Mel. I thought she was going to be severely wounded, where she was going to be hospitalized. She was going to be in a coma, something. And I think this is how the first episode should have started off with the season, where the mother steps in and overtakes action and starts immediately sending out her own troops into the Undercity. And it's kind of like, the rest of like the mangled up council members, they're just kind of like siding with her about it because they kind of have no choice at the matter because they're still dealing with the fallout. And you see the mother, like, even in this episode, it was so strange to see her in the back, like, not really saying anything. She's just stuck in command, and that's not
purpose though. That's purposely done. That's
and I don't think it was a good decision. I really don't.
No, because the whole and we'll get to it. But
it's a little too on the nose again. I mean, and her daughter calls it out. Thank you for doing. Oh, look, I'm the power behind the alleged throne, but actual wheelchair or whatever. I'm just like, did the good writers, were they in a car accident in the last 2 years and got replaced with just generic writers that write modern stuff? Because everything about this is exposition, on the nose exposition, or here, let me show you things visually. There's a literal lamp shading line in this episode where it's Mel and Jace talking, and she's like, boy, we somehow didn't get injured, but everybody else, and it was like, just because you're pointing out the stupidity of it doesn't mean that it excuses it.
There is one later as well. I think it's at the end of the episode where she says, "Oh, how did they get into the memorial so easily? Somebody must have been doing something behind the
you read my mind. That's what I was saving it for, because it's like, it's so right in your face. Like, it's Ambessa
we're gonna need a bigger lampshade. Is what we're gonna need.
That doesn't even make sense to me, in my opinion. The whole fucking tower gets attacked.
Sure it does.
Blown to bits. But then next thing you know, the memorial has little to no security. That thing should have been beefed up to the max where they couldn't even get in. They should have been checking IDs, and et cetera, to find these people before the attack even began. Like,
We'll get to that scene. We will get to that scene.
I know. It's just like, oh man, it's like you guys said, it's the talking and talking and talking. The council members were literally siding. They were giving the Undercity a chance to thrive, to finally coexist with one another, and do things better in the future. But no, that missile attack should have been a clear statement that will never happen. And yet there was still more talking. I'm like, okay, here, this is dumb.
I don't mind a debate about this thing happened. What is our best course of action? I want to run in, kill everything. All right, slow your roll, because what you don't want to do is escalate. Although you can have that discussion or whatever. What you can't have is this kind of bad writing discussion about things.
I actually want more of the discussion and the debate. I mean, this scene is again quite a good example of that, because they're talking immediately about the response, and I'm thinking back to. Actually, to be fair, the council scenes in season 1 were probably some of the weakest scenes in season 1, but a sensible, a show which has an internal politic would say someone might ask questions about how Ambessa has any power here at all. Yeah, she's just inserted herself. That being pointed out would be setting up a beat later on. It's not really pointed out. They're discussing what the response should be in Zaun, and they're saying, well, we should go and invade, but we shouldn't use Hex Tech. But we did use Hex Tech in season 1, and we didn't have any problems doing that. Only Jace is the person who had that problem, but he's going to sort of reverse ferret in this episode as well. They aren't leaving time for the conversations that need to be had in order for characters' decisions to be properly justified. I want more of this stuff, because season 1 did it so well, but we're not.
I want ethical and practical discussions about what our response going to be, what should we do, what are the limitations, and why, and all that stuff. But what we do is we talk too much about too little. But again, it's this pacing thing, because I got to hurry up and get to action scene.
Well, the other part I want to talk about is like with Jace, like he breaks that promise already with Victor by never using the hex core again. He does it to save Victor. Okay.
Understandable.
Then he's like, then we see a scene where Mel comes in and he's just like, did you tell him I'm never using a hex core again? Like, I'm not doing it. Then he meets Caitlyn in the park, and then he's just like, maybe we should use hex core. And it's just like, dude, you just finished saying that you're not going to use it.
To be fair, he's talking about using Hex Tech versus the Hex Core. They are different items. The Hex Core is the device that saved Victor. Hex Tech is the
same shit, different pile.
Technology.
Yeah, same shit, different pile. He's still like wanting to use the source
because Jace
from
has
Hex
always
Core.
wanted to use Hex Tech, but the Hex Core itself is dangerous. They are different pieces of technology. That's like saying, "Hey, we're not going to use cannons, but we will use swords." I've always known.
But Victor, in this situation, he doesn't want to use Hex Tech. So explicitly in this situation,
exactly.
It's not one of those on the nose lines of dialogue, because he comes in to see Mel, and he's obviously worried because the council's talking about using it, and she says, "I'll handle it. I won't let them corrupt your dream." She doesn't want them. He doesn't want it to happen at the time. He then has a line where he's like, it's later on, I think, when it's said, Vi, fucking Caitlyn says Vi thinks all the problems will be solved if we fix her gloves. And he says, maybe it would be. So what they're aiming for here is a sensible thing, which is that Jace is kind of stuck in the middle. He is honoring a promise. He has seen the disaster that Hex Tech can bring because, he killed a kid. But also, he is under pressure, and the city looks to him. Well, actually, we don't see ever the city looking to him for protection, but he says that's what's happening. Would have been nice to see it, but we take it as given. What they're doing is a sensible idea of trying to portray his change of mind over the course of this episode, but they don't really ever show the change of mind. He has maybe 3 lines in total talking about Hex Tech. And given how weighty that is, and that decision is, and how big a moral flip it is, and the promises he's breaking to other characters, you need more than 3 lines, I think, to do that justice.
Yeah, the decisions you get from him are unearned.
Differently, actually, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong in this. I'm open to being wrong about this. However, I don't think he was talking about the idea of using Hex Tech as a whole. The conversation between him and Caitlyn was about Vi. And that's why there's the line when Caitlyn's like, Vi turned down the badge, and he's all like, well, yeah, what the fuck do you think she was going to do? So when he says maybe she's right, he is specifically talking about putting his trust in Vi, the individual, with fighting this fight as opposed to an overarching government body. I took it as him literally talking about Vi.
I have a question based off this episode. Did anybody get a sense that they are setting up any villain, any kind of villain arc for anyone?
Ambessa is the
But she's wishy-washy even in season 1. She's I don't see her
No,
as a villain.
no.
She's just
She's-
more motivated
She's
for
got a
herself.
much bigger part to play in this. That's for sure. I mean,
I just
You don't know
feel
that
like
from
there's
this
a
episode,
strong
though.
villain in this.
I think you're right.
setup.
I mean, well, so I don't know about villain. Well, you do have villains. The bigger thing, what you have are you have two different civilizations that are essentially on. They have already collided. We are now deciding how we're going to be dealing with that collision, and then you have Ambessa, who already has her own plans that she wants to. She wants certain powers to deal with her problems, but also kind of push Piltover into her side and get her daughter involved and all this stuff. But again, the decapitation strike that happens to take out all of the people who would have wisdom and leaves only the younglings, and then she's there to kind of guide them along. Again, I see what you're trying to do. I don't think you've earned it, but do your thing. I don't think we're at a point other than everybody's in kind of this moral chaos. Well, except for one side, that we've established who's going to be the big bads for the next one. What we do know is that bad things are happening. They continue to happen, and that keeps prodding the decisions for Piltover and its alleged leadership.
This scene is triggering me, but on the villain point, I think yeah, the difference. Season 1 benefits immensely from having Silco as, Silco goes on a very important arc in season 1, and he is the uniting threat against which everyone is around which everyone is revolving. He is a very pivotal character in a literal sense. The show revolves around his actions, so he's a strong villain in that sense. And his arc is going from basically just a villain to discovering care and responsibility and all the things Vanda had to put up with when he took control, and softening when he, takes on a surrogate daughter, essentially. And so you soften the villain at the end of the show, but you've had a really powerful villain all the way through the show until that point. Season 2 picks up. Chaos is a good word for it. I think the chaos is deliberate in part, but you don't have that same anchoring villain, because we already know Ambessa is not a straightforward nasty in the way that Silco was portrayed to be at the beginning. Mm-hmm. We already know she has values like family, and we'll discover later in this first act that there are also forces pursuing her. So she's more complex and she's not as present. She is way more behind the scenes. And that probably makes the feeling that there isn't a proximate villain more powerful. The show maybe suffers from that lack of direction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think again the attack in the funeral undermines the Jinx being the agent of chaos that has then, because of her action, even though both sides may have not chosen that, but she chose for them. Now they kind of have to deal with the fallout. But then you kind of have this on the nose attack that happens that makes it like one side already knows and understands what they're doing and are ahead of the game. That takes away the chaotic aspect of it.
Power vacuums, and Silco dying was inherently going to leave a power vacuum. It makes sense that one faction would want to show their sense of strength by doing something crazy like attacking Piltover as a way to establish dominance in Zaun. That I don't really see.
No, I mean the first thing you're going to do is, because again, this is like a day. They're going to have to solve their problems in Zaun to actually consolidate power and set themselves up and then go roll. Here came Crazy, who nobody liked, by the way. Nobody likes Jinx. She has done an act of war. Shit is coming down, and your decision is, I'm going to actually ensure that they come down on us hard. Okay.
Yes, because season 1 there's this scene with Silco and then all the factions that he basically rounded together to take complete control of, showed how brash and unthinking they were compared to him. So I don't know. This to me makes perfect sense when you look at that scene in season 1. Now again, I think there's a problem in that this show does not do this first episode doesn't do near enough to remind you of what happened in season 1, which is a problem for something that came out 2 fucking years ago. However, no, this is completely within the character of what we see from these factions in season 1. Absolutely.
Except that you don't see anybody really going after Piltover other than Silco.
Yeah.
Right, and so now you've got these other factions that are trying to usurp his throne because of power vacuum. They're going to try to continue.
His throne had nothing to do with attacking Piltover. In fact, it's an agent of chaos. He was not going to attack him.
And they were bribed.
Right,
well, they were induced to
that's
attack Piltover, because it's not exactly their plan. It's Ambessa's plan that Piltover gets attacked. Well, I mean, we'll get there when we get to the memorial scene, I guess. But having your main villain not be a villain and be behind the scenes at the same time, you can do really interesting things with that character. It just makes the thing slightly less crystal clear than season 1 was. And the fact that Jinx is also without purpose in the first 3 episodes of this, whereas in season 1 she had chaotic purpose but definite purpose all the way through. Just, I think, leads to a certain lack of direction. The lack of direction is arguably the point they're trying to make, but it does have dramatic consequences as well.
Super chat here from Hosty for $5. At least that scene got a bit of an explanation. It doesn't explain how they got past security, but they at least accounted for why.
Yeah.
Really weak security after having an attack on your capital.
Yeah, well, and we'll get there, but like, here's the thing about this, like this episode, like the whole first season was based on the sisters. It was based on Vi and Jinx, and then the surrounding characters. I thought for sure we would start off with either Vi or Jinx, one of the two, because that's pretty much how you set the groundwork. That's why I say, like, it would have paid off better if this episode started off with Jinx when she was underwater talking about how everything's gone to shit, and then you can get into the storyline, because like then you understand that what's the villain that attacks the memorial there?
The one that had the son get killed. Well,
yeah.
So
no, the Baroness. Yeah. So that would make more sense, because then it's already been established that the Baroness is in trying to take control. You understand what's happening with Zaun, and then you can get into the Piltover aspect of things. That's my struggle with this first episode, and then a lot of the convenient things that happen throughout this episode, like the Karaman key, like Platoon. I know you want to dive into that. Like that's all I came out of left field. Like, where did this come from? So
because it sort of ties in, I think, to the point about villains, which is that episode 1 is almost establishing a switch of protagonist as well. Vi being the one who led so much of the action through season 1 takes very much a back seat throughout these first 3 episodes, and Caitlyn, who was, in my mind, the least well drawn of all the characters in season 1, the least well developed, is the one who now is, if not the protagonist, then the one who is going to be the driver of events in the way that Vi was in season 1. And this is all effectively dumped on us in this scene. Mother's dead. By the way, she had a key. By the way, the key controls a ventilation system that, by the way, we built because there's a thing called the Grey that, by the way, is maybe the product of factories, but also isn't because it has demon eyes. And by the way, this key will give you the power to control it. And by the way, that means you can use it as a weapon. And no one will talk about that, by the way. Not even that's one of the slightly staggering things, is that the Grey is a noxious element, and believably, there's a backstory about it being evil as well as just toxic, and she has control over this, and she will use that as a weapon in the Undercity from whence Vi comes. And as far as I recall, there isn't a conversation from anyone or much of a moral qualm about what she does. They just go along with it. I know that's kind of jumping into episode 2 territory, but just to set that up, we aren't going to have that important conversation in episode 1 when I think we really needed it, because it's a very big, important moral decision that other people should have opinions on.
Yeah.
So Platoon, you when we were doing the review last week, you specifically, like you mentioned, you were talking about Caitlyn, about how she was probably the worst developed character. When I was watching this episode the first time, we get to this, I think it was by the time we get to like the memorial scene, it's like, oh, they're really putting emphasis on the fact that she is now a decision-making character. Regardless of what episode 1 did in terms of whether they did it well or not, do you think that's a good choice going forward, because it's such a stark contrast from what season 1 was? I
like the idea again. I think the contrast is interesting. There's a few of those moments where it's the same thing with Jace. I like what they have in mind is interesting. You're putting characters in effectively intolerable and insoluble situations they can't get out of. And you're showing how events can turn good people bad and bad people good and so on. And that's what they're trying to do with Caitlyn. But there's no real conversation about it. She goes from being quite bland and boring in my book to being bland and boring and important. And we don't, all the people around her who could make her interesting, Vi in particular, don't do that. And the way they introduce it with this sudden MacGuffin key is not desirable either. It's not very well set up. Taking this staid and kind of out of touch elitist person, but who's got a good heart, and turning her into the militaristic, all action gung-ho character is a good idea, but I don't think it's yet been well executed.
Yeah, and I think the much like what Gooch is talking about, and then we talked last week about the Caitlyn not being an especially interesting character. I think the writers believe that they made her interesting, because she's in so much of season 1 towards the end, and there's so much by choosing Caitlyn instead of Jinx in certain situations, even though as we're watching it, we're kind of like, wait, why? Because Bland Girl did bland things for you? Okay. And then them starting out, they really believe that they laid the foundation. Man, we've really made Caitlyn this interesting character. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you have not.
Planned.
I find her
Go ahead,
boring.
Laura.
Anytime she's on screen, I don't care. I mean, I'm sorry that her mother died, but I don't have any connection to this character. Didn't feel like I had a connection in season 1 with her. And I actually think she muddles down Vi in a way too in their scenes. And it makes me kind of want to pull away from Vi and not really care of what her story is continuing.
You know,
Yeah.
Good,
now that
Vi
I think
sucks.
about it, I was actually pulling away from Vi in the first episode. Couldn't figure out why, but now that you're saying it, yeah, I think that's the actual reason.
Nia, I just wanted to hear your thoughts. You've been hearing
Ian, are you
everything.
alive?
I am, yeah. Look, you guys have pretty much said it all. Like, Caitlyn is the least developed character, so it's quite baffling that the emotional weight of the story and what's driving so much of the momentum is her. We've got her relationship with Vi, which is the least compelling dynamic. And I think what makes it so glaring is the fact that in the previous season, at any given time, there were many character dichotomies and relationships being juxtaposed at the same time. You had Jason, Victor, Vi and Jinx, Silco and Jinx, Caitlyn and Vi, Savika and Silco, Caitlyn and her mother. Like, there was so much going on, even Mel and her mother. Yet here, for the first, I think, 20, 25 minutes, it's just about Caitlyn, who we don't really care about. So all of it just falls flat on its face.
Yeah.
Oops, go ahead, Jay, and I'll go right after you.
No, go ahead, Zach.
You know, it was so much of Caitlyn in this episode. I honestly, I was playing out a scene in my head, and I think it would have worked so much so much more better than what the way this episode is going down. I think that it would have made sense to me that Vi would have went back and chased after Jinx or something, and she can't find her. Jinx pops up in a place, and she's kind of like mocking her. She's, kind of like, oh, you like what I did, or how's everything? I did what you guys never kind of. And I thought, Jinx in a way would have been set up to be the main villain for the season. But the way that this episode played out, it just tells me that she's just going to be like another chaotic piece, like all over the place, and she's not going to be the actual villain or a mastermind. It would have been great to see her if she was, what she just did. She's like, I'm going to be the new head of the underworld table, and I'm going to do things my way. And it's not going that direction. And I think that was a missed opportunity.
It almost does, because there is that scene when but I think it's the first actual conversation you get in this episode between Vi and Caitlyn, when Vi says that I can end this, just me and my gloves, and I'll go and finish it. And she doesn't do that. And what they're doing is leaning very hard on the relationship they've built up, and the fact that Vi, mostly because we're told she does, but Vi is supposed to care very much about Caitlyn. And that's the reason. I think obviously Caitlyn tries to thrust the badge on her, and she doesn't want it, but she'll eventually accept it again for Caitlyn. So a huge amount of Vi's character is now caught up in the relationship that I want more of, and I like the idea of, but as so much of this episode, I keep end up saying I don't think they've really done it very well, because given how strong Vi's motive should be, I haven't seen enough of their loving relationship to make me understand why he would not go out on her own.
And what's crazy is, I was gonna say, and what's crazy is that scene where she forces the badge, drops it, she's walking. I'm thinking she's going right after Jinx, but no, she's just sitting here drinking at a fountain next to this random guy in the corner. I'm like, to me, I didn't think that was a thing that Vi would have done in that moment, because the minute she got out of prison, she was all about getting Jinx. Next thing you know, boom, it's like, I think I'm going to mope around a little bit.
Well, she can't. She doesn't have the technology to go up against the people in Zaun. Like, because like she's a mark for everyone in Zaun. Like,
she
if
just beat the hell out of most of the.
Well,
people
she's
out
turned her
there.
back, and she's turned her back on Zaun in their eyes. So, like, I think you can't have that character just walk in there thinking that she can, strut throughout the underworld. I think they're trying to, that's what they were trying to establish. I think the problem with this episode is like you built these two characters, Jinx and Vi, and we've gone through the trauma, the psychology of them. Like we've seen them go through so much, and then it's just gone and right off the get-go. That's my
that I think they're trying to account for, because to give the show credit as well, as because I know we've been very critical, but the other thing that's playing on Vi's mind at the moment is that she believes that she has lost her sister. Now we know that she isn't going to believe that forever, and she doesn't really believe it, but in her own mind at this moment, she thinks that she's lost her. She isn't her sister anymore. There's a difference between Jinx and Powder. So you can make, from that position, you can say, well, then she's not going to be as strongly motivated to go after her, except that she is at the beginning. That's the first thing she says she'll do. So the two things are kind of straining against each other. She begins by saying, give me my gloves, I'll go and do it. And then she doesn't do it because she doesn't have the motive, because it's not her sister. But then she must have thought it was her sister in order to have the thing. And to begin with, there are a couple of different ideas, I think, for her character kind of competing with each other, and they haven't quite, either one of them, come to dominance.
Right. I think, again, that they believe that they delivered a very compelling relationship between Caitlyn and Vi, and that these are very interesting characters. And so now Vi is in this moment of, yes, she wants to go, do a thing. She also realizes that Jinx is no longer, there's no Powder there anymore, but she's torn with Caitlyn or whatever, except that I don't care if I don't know why she would be torn with Caitlyn. Caitlyn has nothing has happened other than incidents have kind of lined up that she makes kind of the good decision to save Caitlyn. That's more a comment on Vi than it is on the interesting aspects of Caitlyn in season 1. And then we go to season 2 where it's like, and remember this important character? It was like, well, I remember this character. I don't remember them being that important, but okay.
Yeah.
Again, as the resident Vi hater on the panel, there's one moment with Caitlyn here that really did work for me. Like when Caitlyn goes to give her the badge and Vi's like, I can't wear this. They murdered my parents. You know how it feels. And Caitlyn's like, yeah, I kind of do actually. Like, sorry, seeing Vi get kind of shut the fuck down like that made me really happy. So I'm gonna give this episode some credit for that.
Nick, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this introduction.
Well, yeah, I definitely thought that Mel was going to die. Obviously, the trajectory of Jinx's ultimate rocket should have killed her, but we all know that there's heavy plot armor, and obviously, if you're just looking solely at this first episode, you wonder. And I thought she might still die. Like there's still time left in this episode for something else to happen, but we see that opportunity come and go, and really after that, I knew that she had a bigger part to play, and I didn't necessarily like that decision either. And obviously, since she's coming to the game now, it kind of ruins any sort of expectation that there's going to be this effect, and it's going to pull Jason in a direction that will ultimately have him make some unfortunate decisions. But I think that's going to be centered around his relationship with Victor. In the decision that he made, which is kind of interesting because I forget where Victor was standing in the season 1 finale, but that man, and I know he was fragile to begin with, but he was about dead on the floor. And the fact that, Jace takes him to the hex core, and obviously Mel is unscathed, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And honestly, with Caitlyn, she's definitely the weakest part about this whole episode. I did feel bad for Vi at times because I think that she should have gone off on her own. And I mean, a lot of what Platoon has said, and I definitely agree with. And it's just unfortunate because we've already seen some of the relationships and the turmoil, the comes and goes between them all, and it's like it's kind of stalling the story, and we really needed to see a more movement in the plot. And there's only one part that has more value to the funeral scene, but again, you don't see that in this first episode, and it comes at a later point in the first act. So sure, if you're looking at the first act as a whole, and I said that in our private chat, it sucks that the third episode has to give credence to the first episode in order the first episode to have some sort of good type of feeling about it. It shouldn't be that way. And the other thing about this episode was it was written by Amanda. I looked up her name, Amanda Overton. She actually wrote the 5th episode in season 1, which was a pretty good episode. And so I'm really curious as to why why all these lulls, why this it's slow, it's fast, it's slow, it's fast, it's back and forth. I don't know who made that decision. I don't know if that was a direction thing or what, but I really don't feel like it was the season opener that we all deserved to have, especially because this is it. This is season 2 and it's over. There's no season 3 coming. So they really shouldn't have, pulled their punches with this. I definitely think, Ambessa should have been a little bit more aggressive in her talks. Again, we might see that later, and we do. But I think Caitlyn is she's not who she needs to be right now in this first episode.
It's why you get the previous scene just before this one is when effectively we're just doing very, very, it's like speed dating for character establishment stuff with Caitlyn, because there's not enough of it, and because she has also got to go on a massive change. So you get, I think it's the lead into that scene. You've got Mel and Jace, and Mel says you should go and see Caitlyn because she's keeping it together, but the poor girl's in so much pain. And then we go and see Caitlyn, and she tells us exactly what pain she's in. Because she says, I see 3 faces. I see Jinx, and this is what that makes me feel. And I see my mum, and this is what that makes me feel. And I see Vi, and this is what that makes me feel. And it's like, okay, thank you for that. And now at least I'm caught up, but I kind of was expecting something more.
Cool story, sis. Thanks.
Yeah. Agreed.
But you mentioned the pacing, and you could roll back the tapes, and I think Platoon, you might remember me saying there was pacing issues in episode 5 and 6. I think we were talking about it. I said it just feels off with the pacing here, and it still worked, but there was some pacing issues with it. If it's the same writer, it makes sense to me. This episode, we get introduced to a lot of new characters that I kind of well, okay, yeah, new characters are fine, and we know why they're doing it, obviously for the game and for everything else, to make money off of it. But we still need to.
Are they introducing new characters?
Same directors too, by the way, for this episode as episode 5 in season 1.
Okay, I just feel like we need to get back to the core that made the first season, which was
you mean the hex core?
yeah Vi and Jinx. I think that's what we wanted in this first episode, and we didn't get it. We got all this,
they're completely moved away from Vi.
Decisions. Oh, sorry, go on, Nadia.
They're completely removed away from that relationship in this episode.
Yeah,
and introducing these characters that, again, maybe be impactful. You could argue in the next couple episodes, but there's nobody here that I'm curious about. Nobody that perks me up saying, okay, what's the background here? Why is this character this way? And it's just felt very rushed this episode. And the pacing, while I agree with you with 5 and 6 of last season, this one it just didn't, there's no excitement. There's nothing that keeps your attention going to the next scene. And to me, even with the memorial scene, when later on in the next couple episodes how it's played, it's kind of very telling. It's not a surprise to me. I actually saw it coming a mile away. There's just nothing that's grasping my attention like the first season in this episode, which is a shame because of what had led up to this.
To be honest, I think this scene would have been so much better instead of having those drugged out wackos. If that was Jinx, I thought it was Jinx coming into the memorial and be like, "Oh, I'm not done with you guys yet." And it was.
It's good that it's not, Zach. And because think about episode 2. First of all, did you watch all 3 episodes? I know we're not going to review episode 2.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Episode 1 doesn't have Jinx in it. Episode 2 is very, very Jinx heavy. They are intentionally splitting the Vi and Jinx
100%
codependency effectively. Yep. I think that's actually a good move because you can only write that shtick for so long. They've already established they're not sisters anymore. So we don't really need the codependency of Vi and Jinx. There's a reason the two are heavily split in episode 1 and 2. Jinx leading this attack would actually sully what they do in episode 2.
Yeah, I don't
agree
need
with you,
Jinx.
Leon. But what are they replacing it with, though?
That's
that
the
relationship.
question.
carried season 1 too. So where in these, even in the 3 episodes continuing, what are they replacing it to keep you hooked on to see what's going on? This politic back and forth was not as strong in season 1, so I could care less, right? There's not a really big established villain, so there's nobody I'm very curious to. Well, we'll get to that in a later episode. I'm curious about some fraction that's not even included in this.
Yes.
But it just, there's nothing to keep you hooked in. It's just like, let's do scene by scene. Let's just throw this character in. Let's just throw this in. We'll come back to this, and it's a mess.
No, remember, go ahead.
Well, it's like it's a good. I mean, I'm with Leon in the sense that splitting up Vi and Jinx opens up a huge amount of space for you to do important things with other characters, and that's a sensible decision. We already know a lot about them, and more things need to happen. I think my main problem with the episode is that we just don't get anything. So, like, the characters they introduce in this episode, the only reason I'm thankful for them is that they make it so much easier to do a point-by-point comparison with the opening episode of season 1 in terms of character introduction. Just to so, even if you think, I think this episode is okay in places, I don't think it's good. Lots of people really like it. But if you're saying this comes anywhere close to season 2, just compare the way that season 1 opens and the characters you learn about. The kids who are not in it for more than 3 episodes are a really good way to look at it when you compare the deputy guys and gal who were introduced in this one, whose names I don't even fucking know. And I know nothing about them. There's the Scottish one. I know she's
Maddie.
Scottish. There's the drunk
Maddie.
one, who I know is drunk, and there's the green one, who I know is green, and that's about it.
That's why I said, I was like,
Thumbs it up.
are there characters introduced? No, there are NPCs that are genetic. I came to call. Well, I think Bobby Blankenship correctly said it was "We Happy Pew" for the first time you see the redheaded gal. But as this goes on, I decided that it was Big Daddy and Little Sister from BioShock, because there's very much that feel. Now this damn scene, this is where my wife was like, "Do you need to take a break?" Because I began throwing things right. First of all,
we've actually gone past the bit of the episode that I think probably Jay and I both think is the stronger bit of the episode. So now we're on to the bit that we really
now we're on to the shit. Where was chainsaw scissors stored? How big is your prison pocket that you were able to stuff that up in there and then walk around with your little, covered cloak and hat, and then pull this out? And I immediately, I'm like, this, and Nick sadly abused me of this, which makes this worse. Tell me this isn't a weapon that's in the game.
No, because it's not.
Okay, that makes it worse. I was willing to go, okay, you know what? This is shit, but it's fan service shit. Whatever. Okay, no, that's not even this. This all needs to die in a fire.
Why is the security ramped up?
Is it new though?
So those two things are explained. So like the reason it's that weapon is in a bag. The guy so there's a policeman who's undercover. He's got a tattoo. He's an undercover evilman. He gets a bag with the chainsaw weapon out of a cupboard. He drops the bag behind the person in the veil, and the person in the veil uses the chainsaw. Then the guy with the tattoo goes and knocks Mel over and points a gun at her. And you think, oh, she can't possibly escape death twice in an episode, can she?
Oh, yes, she can.
Because it's not a gun, it's a flare pistol. Why is it a flare pistol? Because apparently this very public memorial is being held in a really secret location. So otherwise, I guess the airship wouldn't know where to go. That makes no fucking sense. And I don't know why she didn't pull the trigger on that. But at least we know where the sword comes from, right? And we know how they got in because Ambessa gave them a pass that lets them pass security. And security famously asks no further questions as long as you've given them your paperwork. That's all that needs to happen.
Yeah, you can definitely walk in with duffel bags after there's been a serious explosive attack on the government leadership. No problem.
Platoon, when you break it down that simply, it just amazes me that it just got past the drawing board.
The story effectively stands still, like for the majority of this episode, with exposition, lampshading, heavy-handed character introductions, and nothing is happening until this attack, which itself has no stakes, as there's no danger or tension because the character's not at risk. Like, I think like a well-timed, meaningful character death makes it clear to the audience that no one is safe. It's the writer's way of reminding the audience that the story has consequences and that actions come with a cost. When you know that your favorite characters could die at any moment, every decision, every fight, every threat feels more urgent and meaningful. But here, not only does Mel not die from Jinx's rocket, but she and every other important character doesn't get killed or injured. It's so bizarre that they went this route.
But dude, chainsaw scissors. Come on. I mean, what?
I
Oh
mean,
my god.
Technically,
Stupidity.
This is still basically Final Fantasy made by Western people. It's a cool weapon, okay? I was also watching and like, this is impractical as fuck. But by the same token, they've got dudes and drugged out mechs attacking the city that can't be shot with guns. I'm sorry.
Which makes sense because they actually, it has an effect. I have decided to make a chainsaw scissor as my weapon. Somebody needs to send you back to whatever short buzz you wrote in on this attack from.
My problem wasn't the weapon. You know, if this episode, it was such a banger, we can excuse the exaggeration of a weapon like this. I'd be like, no, fuck it. It's cool. You know, who cares? Like, keep going. But because the way this episode is the way it's at, you know, of course we're going to pick at every fucking thing that this thing is delivering because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, but I have a broader question. Can someone tell me what the point of the entire scene is? Why is the memorial being attacked? What does it achieve?
Because she lost her son, and she's coming to get revenge because I think vengeance because Jace, I think Jace was the one that killed her son, and so she's like, she even mentions it in this episode. But like, they don't establish that she becomes the leader of this.
I completely forgot who she was.
My wife had to remind me of this
again. Again, that's where I thought the beginning of episode 2 would have fit a lot better, because then it's established that what's her name, Renee, Chem, the Chem girl, she talks about how she's taking over and she's trying to get revenge for the loss of her son, and like, because she talks about how everything's gone shit. So that would have been a better setup, and at least we would have known what's happening here. We're just kind of like, okay, they're just trying to just put some action in here. Okay, that sounds good. Like,
sure, but the only reason, obviously, that this person can get in anyway is because Ambessa is behind all of this, right? So Ambessa has arranged this attack. What I was, I guess, asking with the what the point of this is question is that, what do we get from? So what is the narrative point of this scene? What do we get with this that we didn't already have going in?
That they're dumber than we thought.
Isn't this the reason why they eventually agreed to do Hex Tech to go with Hex Tech?
Yeah, and that's
right. But again, that's the thing needed to happen because plot needs to happen. That's not a reason for the scene to happen.
It's what I've been sort of leading. There was a leading question. My problem, I think, with this entire scene, because it takes up so much time, it is the big set piece battle, and so much other time and space has been sacrificed to have this happen, is that we don't actually meaningfully alter the world in a way that the original terrorist attack didn't achieve. Why do we need 2 terrorist attacks to get them to the point of invading Zaun with Hex-Tech weapons, rather than just one? What was actually the point in having this extra beat? Your council has been attacked by Jinx. Your counselors are all dead. You're already in a state of heightened tension, and the want for revenge is already there. The mother died in the terrorist attack. She didn't die here, so that motive's already established. Vi gets no new motive from this. Jace could already easily have made the decision about Hextech in response just to the rocket attack. So my point with asking what all of this is in aid of is that we're taking basically a huge chunk of the episode to put a hat on a hat. And that's why so much of the rest of the stuff seems so rushed.
No, so if again, if I'm trying to make the case for the writers, and I am loath to do so, but the understanding up to this point is that Jinx is the problem. Go after Jinx. That solves the problem. When you have these other players show up, Jinx is not here, then that would recontextualize their understanding to no, this is actually all of Zaun.
But that was already, I think, established in the first scene of the episode, just after the attack, when they're talking about the invasion. And then they're saying that they're not united at the moment. The risk of invasion is the risk of uniting them. But, Jinx is the one behind the attack, but there are other factions that have emerged. So they already understand there are other factions.
Right, but what they don't do is...
You could establish with one dialogue scene at the beginning of the episode, which takes maybe 2 minutes, you could eliminate the need for this entire sequence, which takes about 10 minutes. And then have so much more time to do it. And for all of that, if that's the only meaningful change accomplished by this entire set piece, I don't think that is enough to justify this battle, considering how much else we have to condense and rush over.
Yeah, that's again the if I give them their initial, because again the all of this is bad. All of the writing is bad throughout this. They set things up, but they do it halfway because we want to have a cool scene to then get to the place that we should have got to from the B jump, but we didn't. But given that where the decision making, if you assume the writing up to this point, the reason this happens is that it dispels them of the notion that there's this disorganized mess, and if you just take out Jinx and the Shimmer, then you're good. Nope, there are other people who are taking advantage of this opportunity where everybody's supposed to be in mourning and all that, and they do the thing. The real reason this happens is because we want to see cool things, because her to her.
And it does. Sorry, after you.
It's similar to how you would play the game, like how you would play an RPG game. You get cutscenes of established story, and then you get an action scene where you're fighting. So I hope that's not the way they're going this route, where I feel season 1 was just a good story told from start to finish, where here it's very cutscene, similar to how the game is played.
That was my takeaway too. Yeah, it feels way too video gamey. I mean, like, I understand it's a video game adaptation nominally, but I never really remember. Maybe one episode in season 1 in total, I could look at it and say, yeah, that's obviously just doing the game, but not very often. Like, the strength of it was in not being obviously a video game. I did have another question as well, which is, what is Ambessa thinking with this plan? So her plan, as I understand it, is she wants to use this in order to drum up more tension, even though we've kind of already done that, in order to get Hex Tech militarized, so she can then use Hex Tech, because as we discover in later episodes, there are people after her, but ultimately she's the militarist in this situation. She wants Hex Tech. If that's your plan, sending in a bunch of goons who are motivated by vengeance for the deaths of their own children with random chainsaw weapons into the room with the one person who can weaponize Hex Tech at the risk of killing him, which he almost happened several times and only doesn't happen because Chainsaw Woman is fucking dumb. That makes Ambessa seem very, 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 like, that's not even a risk. That's just being foolhardy. What happens if Chainsaw Woman had not randomly stopped over Jace for the 5 seconds required for someone to shoot her and had instead killed him? Ambessa's entire plan, which she's put into motion, and the reason this scene happens, is ended.
I think Ambessa saw the weapon that this woman was bringing in and thought, there is no way that woman is actually killing anybody with this stupid weapon.
Well, to your point, Platoon, she's also not using it to invade Zaun. Zaun is not her problem. So why even lead that direction? Why not just have a plan to take over the military, use Hex Tech for what you want to establish against who's coming after you? Because she doesn't have a fight in Zaun. It's utilizing it for something else. So why even lead this path?
She needs the weaponry.
I had a different takeaway. I thought she actually did want Jace dead. Jace surviving, because if Jace is dead, Mel has nothing left to fight for. Ambessa can actually usurp Piltover and use Hex Tech of our own volition. So I think Jace living with
is it established? Is it established that anybody else knows how to use Hex Tech to actually weaponize it?
Absolutely not.
Right.
If Jace is dead, she has no means of accessing Hex Tech. Like, her plan is over from the beginning. Not only did she put him at risk.
The monkey wrench in season 1, though, because season 1 has that 7-year time skip or whatnot. You're telling me that Jace didn't teach anyone else how to use? He's the only person in this entire city that can use Hex Tech.
It's Jace and Victor.
If he gets sick, if Jace got COVID because he didn't wear his mask and dies, then all of the over's fucked.
Well, Jace doesn't want Hex Tech or Hex Core getting into the hands of anybody he doesn't trust. The only people that are tasked with playing around with it are him and Victor. And Victor's in a coma.
I get that much. I'm just saying
I would put Heimerdinger in there.
It seems I get Jace's motivation, but it seems ill thought out if homie gets a bad cold.
I just want to know why she just didn't just find a plan to utilize Hex Tech for what she's looking for. Because again, I understand she wants to militarize it and utilize it for what's coming after her. It still doesn't give her a reason to send these folks down there. There's no unless to just distract them.
It's a quid quo pro thing, right? Like, because she's going to help them invade Zaun, and in return she wants Hex Tech, right? Like, that's the whole reason why she's doing this.
My back, I scratch yours.
Yeah,
correct.
But just imagine if, in a much tighter written show, Mel had begun season 2 in a coma, and Ambessa had played on Jace's want for vengeance and corrupted him against Victor in order to get the hex tech directly from him, and he would think he was doing it for the right reasons to get vengeance for Mel, who was almost killed, if not actually killed. And then she's accomplished it, and we have so much more time. We have basically 3 extra episodes to play with in which to do important character beats. And also, we're paying off a relationship that was semi-set up in season 1, when Ambessa was kind of slightly grooming Jace in certain scenes. Like, that just seems like the most natural way for this story to have gone, rather than pivoting to Caitlyn and have Ambessa manipulate random twink counselor until she doesn't want him anymore. Season 1 is so very tightly done, and just that approach applied here would be great, but we're not getting that.
And so,
Well, do you think that it's a question of Ambessa's realized she can't use Jace because of Mel being what she is to him, so that's why she's switched to Solo. Solo's a lot more malleable, a lot more.
Well, again, he already said the reason that happens is because Ambessa's alive. That's why it was a mistake to keep her either alive or at least cognizant and capable of doing anything where you could easily play Jace.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I think I cut you off. Were you about to say something? I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I was going to say to Platoon's point. Not only could Ambessa manipulate Jace with Mel injured and sort of pry and toy with his emotions and convince him that a war is necessary, and a war with Hextech at that, but you could also have her fill in Caitlyn's motherly void. You know, her mother's just died, and she's looking for reassurance and guidance. You can have her sort of take that place and manipulate both Jace and Caitlyn. But yeah,
right. She's the elder. I mean, you wiped out all the olds, and so you have a bunch of young people who aren't experienced with making these kinds of weighty decisions. Doubly so with Jace, and so Ambessa can very easily just slide in and take over that role. Instead, we've unnecessarily complicated it because we want to have Mel alive.
Yeah. Well, this part here too. This another music montage. Heavy as the crown is the song.
Caitlyn really got the short end of the stick with some of these fucking music pieces.
Was this fashion system ever hinted in season 1? I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, so I don't remember.
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so. I still didn't finish my rewatch, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's a new MacGuffin that they've just inserted.
Yeah.
This whole music thing, in addition to the funeral for Caitlyn's mother, made this episode feel like a music video. I don't know if anybody else got that impression.
Yes.
Video game vibe.
The first season did that as well, but it did it at moments that made sense. It was very like combat heavy moments where it actually did sort of add to the visuals. Like basically the visuals came first, and the music just accentuate the visuals, as opposed to the 2 times they do it in this episode. It's like, here's music. Oh man, we should probably make some cool looking shit to go along with it. It's completely reversed.
In the first season, the character and story came first, then the visuals and the music were layered on top of that. Whereas here, the style is taking over substance.
It would work if the episode started off with such a severe bang that, music video like that intro, we were like, oh, okay, now we're cooking. But the way things were playing, you're like, oh, fuck, here we go.
Episode 3 uses the music montage to great effect, I think. I watched it and I was like, wow, why couldn't they have done this in episode 1? And obviously we'll get that when we get to episode 3, but it's episode 3 has something very reminiscent of what they do in season 1, and it was refreshing because they did this so poorly throughout this episode.
You can't undo this episode.
Do you think they wrote themselves in a corner for this? They just did not really honestly knew where to go after season 1?
It was.
I don't understand how. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't continue writing, and they got away from what sold the first season, which is the sisters, and then the side characters that were part of the story that just helped the story go along. This first episode for sure falls extremely flat, and on top of that, they had Zack Snyder come in and do fucking some slow motion all over that fight scene. I'm like, holy shit! Snyder, like Netflix.
I think he may have done some of the writing as well.
Fucking mouth.
I was like, what are we doing here? Everything.
they
was
actually
slow
had him
motion.
come
No,
in the
Zach,
show?
make it.
No.
It's a joke.
I was gonna say, I thought because I didn't look at the credits yet. I think we were like, they really hired him for that.
Just
Like,
on the writing into the corner question, though, I slightly wonder, and this is pure speculation, but I do slightly wonder whether this also might be a question of the new canonicity the show has. If season 1 was written under the understanding it was a very different continuity and they could basically tell whatever story they wanted to with these characters, and then they were told, actually, now you have to make it fit into established League of Legends lore, albeit that's being revised as I understand it, but it does have to fit into a broader thing. Then all of a sudden, you're not being told to write the best story you can. You're being told to write the best story you can in a way that fits in somebody else's story that's already done, which is a very different proposition. And it kind of feels that way with the introduction of the Grey in particular. I really don't like that just anyway, because I think you've got Hextech and the Shimmer, which is more than enough kind of Earth threat type things to be dealing with and understanding. You add a third thing in, and the third thing is increasingly implied to be, I don't know what the Grey is in the video games, but it's increasingly implied to be an actual evil force. That's the kind of thing that you can see all these characters putting aside their differences to fight by the end of the season, which will be very cheap, but I could see them doing something like that if what they're minded toward is fitting back into League of Legends canon and continuity. What is the Grey in the games, by the way? Is that like a prominent thing?
Nick?
Not really. I mean, like, I don't. From what I remember, it's just more of a lore aspect. I mean, it's not like in the game itself. Yeah, exactly. Like Janna. So you see Janna in episode 3, right? Like, there's this giant picture of her on the wall. She's a playable character, but she's essentially like a goddess of the wind.
Right. Yeah.
She like throws these like tornadoes at people. But that's the sole purpose of the Grey. So it's like, it's interesting that it exists in the show, but you don't really see, Janna at all. I mean, maybe we will at some point. I don't know. But I agree, though. I don't know if it should have been included in this. I just think it's like something
Too
extra.
soon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, again,
too soon. You can add them. It's obvious that they're adding all these characters to do side stories at some point to branch off and make that money off of them for Netflix.
Right.
But
right.
It was just too soon. I think you need to establish the after effects. Like, you needed to get Jinx's point, and then you needed Vi, and then you could lead into the Vi Caitlyn, and then you can go into the Caitlyn. That you could pace it out like that, and then of course the Mel Jace part. But like, didn't do that right away. We're like slammed into Caitlyn and all her feelings, and poor me, I lost my mom. Like, it's just like, okay, but like, we still want to know what, like, Jinx is a huge part of this. And that's
I don't mind Jinx not being in this, because Jinx's actions are the reason that all of this is happening, right? And
yes.
It's the fallout from her decision. I don't need to see her write this episode, because that's too, let's just repeat what happened in season 1.
But
right?
you
what
laid the groundwork already, though, because based on the two sisters, you can't just all of a sudden change it up and go to two like the different.
Except you did. You already did. You did it at the end of season 1.
I didn't do anything. They did that.
You were there. You were there. You're guilty. You're guilt by association, sir.
Adding really big fly on the wall.
Adding the Grey doesn't make sense to me when you also not only have the drug issue, like the drug issue of this world, but you also have the Hextech, and then you have the natural ruins, and you're trying to figure that out, and that's part of the storyline as well. So why add more elements on top of it when you haven't even explained some of the things from season 1 very well?
But there's also things that are coming too that you see parts of in episodes 2 and 3. I won't really spoil anything yet, but it's like
the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's from the game, but it's lore, and like those are actual characters that would be great villains to include, and I feel like they might be underutilized, because at this point we're only going to have 6 episodes to use them and to make them feel like they're a threat. But by having the Grey in this part of the show as well, like, it doesn't do anything. So like, you could really build up something monstrous at a later point, but they don't choose to do that. So I think it's a fault with this episode, and I think it's also a fault with Act 1 altogether.
Yeah.
What is going on with Victor? Dude,
Well,
like,
yeah, that's a whole
everything
other
else.
thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's a completely different.
Yeah,
thing.
he's in a cocoon
Victor's-
and go ahead.
Yeah,
Mia.
Victor's going to go on his Moses arc very shortly.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, that's episode 2 though. Don't jump ahead. 'Cause I will.
I know.
I like what they did with Victor. I was okay with Victor being in a coma. this
Dude,
whole
I
episode.
didn't.
Victor is one of my favorite characters, and I think that he's a really the dynamic between him, Mel, and Jace. So Jace is obviously the central figure between the three, and then Mel and Victor have very different pulls on Jace, and so I think taking him out of the first episode and just having Mel there, it does interesting enough with Jace's character, right? So it doesn't bother me at all that we don't get Victor as much as I think he's one of actually the best characters in the show. I think it's an interesting choice that I'm curious where they go with it from here because of what happens in episode 2 and onward.
I'm gonna be honest. The fact that Chase wasn't severely hurt and that he wasn't that magic shit wasn't on him. Like he wasn't like a Frankenstein. Like he was a product of his own, demise. In that way, where he has to live with the consequences of what he's created, and that's embedded with him. I thought that was pretty disappointing because I thought that would have been a lot more better than having him be in that little door.
I mean, there's still plenty of time for that to happen. Gooch, did we miss the big hero shot from the spears and
No,
the
that's
guns?
coming up.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Okay, all right.
No, we skimmed
Oh,
over.
yeah.
Oh, we did.
Did we-
Uh,
That was another throw things.
well, there's a couple things we got to see Vi tackle one of the what do you call chem tanks, and somehow she can pull him down just using her body, and she probably weighs about maybe $140. That I was like, okay,
Yeah, we see her being that badass.
But a punch
all
to the
season
stomach,
one.
she
takes
bulldogs.
her out.
She bulldogs one of the chem tanks, and they can't even shoot this thing over, but yet she can just jump from behind and do a wrestling move and bulldog it. I was like, okay,
that's the bit that I don't. I mean, I have problems with all that stuff, but the one I have a real big problem with is the way the evil Big Daddy creature actually ends up getting killed. Because that's someone lobs the spear. One of Ambessa's lot lobs that spear polearm thing right through it and kills it.
Yeah.
Establishing that it can be killed with conventional weapons, which is not advisable if in your next scene you have a character say, we can't invade because we've just shown that our conventional weapons won't do anything.
Yes.
You've just shown that they do. Why are you not paying attention to your own script? If that
Because-
thing can go through its head, you
because they're
don't need a
introducing
tech.
Ewoks. They're bringing in the Ewoks.
I mean, you're not far off of that, Gooch, but to be fair, it was Ambessa's very small group of very militaristic, battle-hardened people that did it. These are not the soldiers of Piltover, who, let's be real, are glorified British guards or whatever. This was 3 or 4 very burly dudes and Ambessa.
Well, I tell you what, you get the burliest dude you want with the biggest spear you want, and I will use my lever action rifle, and we will see which one gets knocked down first.
Yeah, but,
It's
but
also,
we'd already seen that the lever action rifles had damaged this this suit of armor. There was already cracks and breaks in it. This spear just sort of delivers the final blow. To
No, it
already
punches
damaged
through the
suit.
armor and essentially
But
opens
armor
them
we've
up.
already seen has been cracked and torn.
And
They
what
actually
you're
made it
saying,
clear
though,
to show
is
the armor
like-
had been damaged.
What you're saying, though, is that if you are going to send people down into Zaun, you want to be sending your biggest, strongest warriors with your toughest weapons, right?
Absolutely.
That's what you want to be doing. Just setting that up for a scene that's about to happen.
I'm not saying this is well done or well written in that regard. I'm just saying that in this particular moment, why the spears do what they do makes sense. I don't agree that it's written well after this scene. I just think that this moment here, calling out that spears broke through this armor. Well, yeah, you've got a bunch of jet dudes who are known for being the baddest warriors in the land, all fucking up already shown to be battle damaged technology. The show made a point to zoom in on the cracks and breaks of the armor before the spear hits. So I think that's an unfair call out, is all I'm saying.
This whole scene, the whole fight scene in the fucking memorial also does not make sense. Because why the mother is Ambessa, right? I forget.
Yes.
Yeah. You're telling me that they had however time to get the memorial started and Ambessa didn't have any fucking soldiers there in the beginning? like, you know, like oh no, don't worry, near the end is when I pull them through, and that's when happened. No, all these things should down like that, because if an attack on the tower, she wasn't gonna let the memorial, because she's just
It's a good.
you know what I'm saying? Because she, like, you know, I was under the impression she's dominated planets, she's dominated all the wars, she's lived through it all. She is a master tactician. She knows how to handle her stuff, and she's extremely cutthroat and relentless with the way that she plans her things and goes about does it. Something like the attack in the memorial would have never happened if she was there, which she was, because of the last scene.
That's
it
why
was
it's
just
telling.
so fucking stupid.
And she even has a line, I can't remember if it's episode 2 or 3, when she basically says that the next leader of the council will have the full support of my military, basically. So she does do that, but she does it a lot later than I think she really needs to. And again, it sort of goes back to the redundancy of the memorial fight in particular. I think all the pieces were in play just to basically skip us straight to that point and include loads more character stuff to get us to there rather than the stupid fight scene. She's already got every excuse she needs. She can come in. We've just been attacked. Our council's been decapitated, and I have an army, and I will support you. So now I'm de facto in charge because I'm the militaristic one. And in times like these, you need a strong militaristic leader. There are so many quicker and more efficient ways to get to the point she's going to get to in 2 episodes time. But here we are with this.
Yes. There's so many issues with this first episode. It's just all over the place. Again, pacing, story,
Predictable.
very predictable.
Yeah.
Like, we know that
Yeah.
Ambessa is going to be, you know,
Yeah.
the one behind the scenes pulling the strings.
Well, even with this memorial, when it's revealed that she set it up, you know, later on, that it's like, it's telling. Like Zach pointed out, great points. She's got a strong military. She's got these guys. Why aren't they there? Why aren't they the first ones there to protect these people? Everything was just very predictable in this. You knew exactly who was setting this up.
It's either she was gonna let. It's
Leave it on this
it
shot.
coulda-
Was that,
I don't know.
Gooch.
It was gonna. It's weird. It's 2 things. She either would have done it on purpose to show that she doesn't fuck around near the end. She's gonna take over everything. She's gonna take over the council. She's gonna run it the way she is. No one's gonna stand in her way, which doesn't happen at the end of the episode when you find out. Or what I just said before, where it's like the writers just couldn't figure it out like that. You know, she had this whole military. They show up at the end. They should have been there in the beginning because she's there, you know. And you get those soldiers at the end scene with the whole heroic pose. To be honest, I thought those characters in that heroic pose next to fucking Vi, I thought they were playable characters in the game. Because they were just fucking side characters that were nobodies that was hanging out and getting drunk with Vi, meeting up with her, and the next thing you know, they're the ones that are selected for like this awesome badass mission where they're gonna go
So
do.
you mean the Avengers that we see?
Yeah,
at the
I
end?
was like, are these playable characters of the game? Because like that's what it comes across to me.
I think they'll eventually die. I would kill them.
I hope they do. And it's
Well,
like they're gonna make it
I
such
mean,
an
would have been good if they
emotional
died
impact, too.
before this episode, so
Thank
that we
you.
could have had a good episode.
Yep.
or in this episode.
No, before would have been better.
Oh,
And then, and Anthony
Either
Shattuck
way,
said,
though.
like,
Exactly.
the art is still damn good. It's so great, and yet the writing just takes such a nosedive.
The art also takes a nosedive. I mean,
I
it's,
agree.
look,
Yeah.
still, it's okay or whatever. The style goes to. I mean, it becomes, especially in pose. That was when I was like, oh, this episode brought to you by Raid League of Legends, because it is some basic bitch mobile ad game
Yep.
kind of thing.
Yep.
Yo,
There's a lot of-
100% agree.
There's a lot of-
buried next to Zenitsu.
There's a lot of animation cheats in this too.
Yes, there
that
are.
you notice. It's not like the first season where every frame is like a perfect image. They did what you see a lot now is with the animation. They used Blender where they have that one scene, it's like an elbow cocked back, and then the next scene is like the arm going forward. Where in the last season, or the first season, we had like it was frame by frame by frame of the arm moving. So every frame that you paused on, it showed the arm actually moving. When now you have it like it's a quick,
The other thing is I noticed
frame skip.
Yeah, I noticed a few times lip sync issues.
Yep.
Yeah, I
so
was
speaking.
wondering if that was the show or my TV, so I'm glad that it wasn't my TV, at least, I guess.
Yeah,
it was.
it happens
Also,
with Netflix and other
Gooch, in the
shows
last
sometimes.
24 hours, you have reviewed both League of Legends Arcane and a Star Wars project. Did you believe in the year of our Lord 2024 that you'd be being positive about Star Wars and hateful towards Arcane?
Yeah.
It's because Clone Wars was good back in 03, and this is kind of like meh in 24.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nadia. You could have said it, but it felt like video game.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt anyone.
No,
But yeah, it
speak your mind.
felt very.
Yeah.
The first season, I loved it because of the animation, the color palettes that they used. It's beautiful. It's probably one of the best things Netflix has ever put out. Here, it just, especially this episode, just felt like video game cutscenes. It looks good, but it's not a show, like an animation show to me. It's just, this is a cutscene, and then we're gonna get into a fight with a boss, and then we're on a next cutscene. It just didn't flow well for me.
I'm going to go on the fetch quest where I get drunk with the guy in the gutter. Okay, thanks. That's,
It really is a shame that the way this episode went, because again, I thought that, if I would have went, Chase tried to find Jinx is laughing at her in her face, like, oh, this is just the start of what I'm about to do to this whole city, and you included. Like, you guys will, you guys are going to feel it pretty soon. Don't worry. And then she leaves, and then, like, just kind of be like, oh, she's going to take over, and it's not. The ones that are dead and the ones that aren't hurt is a surprise to me. The fact that the mother isn't taking charge at all whatsoever. She's just a standby general is such a shock to me again, because oh my god, man, it's
well,
like
again, if we had intelligent writing where she is essentially playing people against each other, maneuvering herself into this thing or whatever, but we have had terrible writing where she's apparently going to maneuver herself in a cheesy way to get into it. It's just, I know what they were trying to do. Their execution is so bad, and doubly so when I've seen you do it well. That this one just, I mean, it digs a hole that should never have been dug in the first place. And then congrats if you can redeem it in the next 2 episodes. Good luck. But if you do really well, what you're going to do is get back to ground level where you should have been before this episode started.
It felt like there was no chemistry either, even between established characters from season 1. I'll give it that new characters, maybe we don't have chemistry with them yet, or with the characters, but established characters that we already know their background story, we've already been introduced to them. There is no chemistry whatsoever in this episode between them, especially to me between Vi and Caitlyn. Like, no chemistry whatsoever. Even I would say, minus the lesbian relationship, just the sisterhood, just like friendship. There's nothing there. It just feels
stiff.
dead.
It was a shock to me that Vi showed up in the scene. I was like, oh, here we go.
That's due to the dialogue and due to and then we get to this ending where Caitlyn calls upon the Avengers. Or no, sorry, her team.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah,
it's so cringy embarrassing. But considering this is supposed to be important for a number of reasons. It's important because this is the crack team she's assembled. It's also important because we're supposed to glean from this that Ambessa has kind of been waiting to see a stronger leader emerge, and this is the moment she spots Caitlyn's potential. So she sees Caitlyn do this, and she thinks, yes, this is the person who should lead the city. I don't agree with Ambessa in this situation, because I don't think storming in and saying, I've assembled a crack team of like a small child, a green person, a drunk, and my girlfriend, and we're going to go and invade Zaun. This is not sensible. I don't know.
No.
I mean, I think it's important to emphasize crack. This team is on crack. It's the crack team.
Platoon, you know what this
unrelated,
this
but blue is not Vi's color.
You know what this little scene reminds me of? It's like if I'm picking my characters to go on a mission in Mass Effect.
I think
right?
that's
like
what
on your left,
like not for better or for worse. on League, you have 5-man teams. I think they were trying to symbolize in the game, hey, this person's the jungler, this person goes top lane.
100%.
Like, again, that's dumb. Don't do that for a show. But that's literally what this shot is supposed to be.
Dumb has
Nick, you're an actual
been
player.
So you've got Caitlyn, and the guy with the shield, that's bottom lane. You got Vi's top lane. The drunk is middle, and then green guy is the jungle. That's your MOBA right there.
And you know, it's funny because Vi putting on that uniform, to me personally, that should have been a fucking build up. Like, it should have taken a lot longer for her to muster up the fact that she's like, you know what, I'll put this uniform on, because she's 100% against it. Her whole life, she was against these soldiers. And then all of a sudden, at the end of this first episode, after this one attack in the Memorial, that wouldn't have done it for me. Like,
she even has the line earlier in the episode, I think, when Caitlyn tries to give her the badge and says, these people killed my family, you have no idea what that's like, you weren't thinking. And so, like, okay, the theme of this episode is supposed to be, characters being driven by circumstance to effectively switch their positions. Jace does it, Caitlyn does it, Vi does it, but at no point do any of them talk about it. They just do. And it's like we're skipping over all of the decision-making process that gets you to that point. And the result is these incredibly shallow people who the only characterization is the stuff that you remember from season 1. That's all that is populating these characters.
Yes.
If you'd never seen season 1 and this was your first introduction to the show, you wouldn't have a clue who any of these people were, because the show does nothing with them.
And you damn sure wouldn't care.
Dialogue in the first 20 minutes. Are you sure you actually wanted these characters talking about that stuff? Just asking.
Yes, any characters talking about things is better than characters not talking about things. Although, granted, with that level of exposition, it will be painful, but...
Each of these characters are replaceable. I mean, I'll give it to Caitlyn and Vi maybe with the story, but the other three are replaceable. They're just, like I said in the chat, stereotypical RPG teams based off what their weapon and ability is. There's no heart or depth to their character that we've been introduced to. I just don't care. So if any of those three died and got replaced, I wouldn't think twice.
Part of the reason why you don't care, Nadia, is because we don't know who those three characters are.
Yes.
They haven't been established.
I thought, so the big dude, I thought they were building up to be like, oh, he's going to remind Vi of Vander, because like, even at least on that, I thought they were going to do something like that, and they didn't. I was like, okay, so this is just generic design that happens to like her dad. Like, I actually thought they were going to go somewhere with this character.
There are a few faces in this actually that look disconcertingly like people I remember from season 1. There's a couple of people who look like is it Marcus, the detective who turns bad? There's a few people who have basically his face, and the big guy here just looks like Vander. You could use that as a character beat. They don't do that. I suspect that these people have just been introduced as cannon fodder characters, because we aren't going to be killing important people off. We have to introduce people it's safe to kill off, and that's what these three are. I'm assuming none of them exist in the game, so it's safe to off them, basically.
Like, to me, these characters, like, on the left to right, is Liara T'Soni, Erdnot Rex, Garrus, Commander Shepard, and Thane from Mass Effect. Because they're the weapons, like what Nadia just said, it's exactly like what it is like.
No, it's like watching Suicide Squad again, where you get introduced to like Weasel and all these other characters. They're neat looking characters, but they're useless, and they're going to probably die at some point.
And
what are we? Some kind of Hextech squad?
This was the moment where I was throwing shit, because the way it's shot, it literally looks like a mobile game ad. And look, and play the heroic music, and I'm like, fuck off. Right, get your game out of the show. Right, tell the lore and lead it. So that people can play the game or whatever. Don't mix it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to have game style graphics and game style mechanics in a story, especially because I saw what you did in season 1. Right, you managed to restrain from all of that and tell this really compelling story all through season 1. And I don't know if what happened between season 1 and season 2 is that Riot goes, man, this is popular, maybe we should push the game more, or we need money, or what happened. But this just becomes bad ad for game, and
It is the
it's not
curse
going
of
to work out.
popularity. Like you can escape notice, and so you can do what you want. And as soon as you're noticed, then people above you get in charge and start saying, "Well, it would be really cool if you could, tie this into this thing that we're trying to sell this day." But yeah, the Avengers Assemble scene is like you almost expect to see like a lock symbol with a level requirement, and then underneath the level requirement is a gold amount that you can spend to unlock them. You start with the steady Scottish girl, and at level 5 you get the big chunky guy, and so on and so on. It's very gamified.
Like you said earlier, Platoon, like, I just forgot. I'm gonna remember. Keep going. I just forgot.
I agree with Zach on the uniform thing. I think that was rushed in this. I think she should have went back to Zaun without the uniform, maybe use that as something happened impactful, and then she finally decides she's at her last wit. Let me put this uniform on. It just felt very rushed with Vi's character. It just felt very not her.
Speaking of,
go ahead,
go on,
Nia.
Gooch. I was going to say, speaking of characters, anyone else think it's odd that considering how pivotal Jace is to both the transformation of Victor and the gearing up of the Hextech squad, we don't see him discussing any of his decisions before he makes them? Like,
yeah, no. No, he just breaks promises. He's
but even then, that's like, I mean, that will be jumping ahead to episode 2, isn't it? But even when he does get a conversation about it, it's over in about 30 seconds. It's just, Victor wakes up and he says, "What am I?" And he says, "Well, you're alive." And he says, "Well, I told you not to do that." And Jay says, "Well, I did do that." And Victor says, "Well, I didn't like that you did that, so I'm leaving." And Jay says, "Okay." And I say, that's cool. This is not really character work.
It's breathtaking dialogue.
And it hurts their
wait, let me write that down. That's compelling right there. Let me get that.
And it's an insult to their relationship that they built in season 1 completely. All of this is just an insult to season 1.
Oh, now I remember. Like Platoon said earlier in the stream, the way that this is just a complete U-turn of fine quality dining. It just seems that the video game company came in and said, "All right, we didn't think the first season was, you guys were going to do good, but because it did so good, now you're going to have some restrictions. You got to follow these guidelines. Here you go." And now it's restricted to force them in a box where this is the result of it.
No, this is the concerns I had for season 2. This is I had this.
Yeah, it was. I was like, please don't. And I have concerns, but you had built up so much goodwill through season 1, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna cautiously, check this out or whatever. And what a hell of a start you've chosen.
I also thought with Victor here, I thought, okay, the magician or wizard or whatever that thing was in the beginning of season 1. I was thinking, Victor becomes that character somehow.
I was thinking that too, actually, just by looking at him.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I was thinking very much like an
smile.
opposite. But again, I haven't seen the other episodes. The thing that struck me was because of the Hex Tech and the way that it only seems to be compatible with him or whatever, and that he's been body modifying with Hex Tech or whatever. It was like this doesn't look like this ends well.
I mean, part of Victor's lore has been changed from his biography in the game, and I don't know if they're going to further push it or change it in the next 2 acts, but you do see a little bit more of it, obviously, in the next 2 episodes, and what he becomes or what he tries to do. I mean, yeah, exactly right. Like he's in it for evolution purposes, but again, there's a disagreement between him and Jace still, and that's obviously what creates the rift between them. And obviously, like, I don't expect some characters to appear in this show because, again, I don't know if they're going to stick to his actual, lore biography. But, Victor was all about the mechanical evolution. I don't know if they're still going to go that route with his character and how he plays out biography wise or how he exists in the game, of course, and not that it needs to pan out that way, but I know some people like myself and maybe like T-Pro who are avid game players, we do want to see stuff like that, but we should be used to these companies changing things from comic books or any sort of source material, right? But because this is Riot, they control any sort of retconning or what they want to redeem as canon at this point. So I would almost expect, Victor's story to change here on out to a certain extent, but I hope it doesn't, because I think we really do need to see, a rift between Jace and Victor, like we saw with Jinx and Vi, because, again, I think who knows what's going to happen in Act 2
It's
and 3.
hard to see how you get that, because I didn't get the impression from what the rest of we see of Victor, and certainly in the first act, that he is still the scientist who's committed to mechanical evolution. That seems much more Jace, who's committed to the scientific wonders and the possibilities entailed by Hextech, and Victor's off basically being Jesus and healing the sick with magic.
Right.
And I don't know how you claw that back to the conflict between the uses of science, given that if he's committed to progress and Jace is committed to progress, then what's the fight going to be about?
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? And that's the issue with the changing of the lore. And I don't know how it's going to play into other aspects of the villains either. If Victor joins forces with Zaun, and there's going to be the battle between Piltover and Zaun, where you have this, Jace versus Victor type battle, which I would love to see. I think that would be awesome, but I don't know if we're going to see that. And I think with this first act, there's been a lackluster of battle, aside from the part in season or episode 2 and 3. But we're all looking for this epic part of two factions fighting each other, but there's going to be other involvement, as we kind of start to see here. That's being hinted in this upcoming scene, and I don't know how that's going to quite interact with the people in Zaun, and then obviously in Piltover, because of lore and canon purposes. So I'm looking forward to certain aspects, but I'm also very nervous that things are going to be completely wrecked in terms of character biographies and overall plot details.
Look at that. A fan that cares about the lore and doesn't like seeing it changed. It's almost like Hollywood has learned fucking nothing.
That scene right there, I almost thought that was Soko for a second.
No, that's the dot that saves Jinx's life.
Yeah, Singe.
Singe, and
great animation right here. Like, it's fantastic. But
I want to see more Singed.
Me too.
We kind of do, but man, dude, it could be an amazing villain, and I don't know how they're going to utilize him as a character. Because he's barely had any screen time, right? Or any art time, animation time, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's something that they're missing out on. Like, give us an actual villain to hate, because I think most of us are kind of wishy-washy at this point with Jinx, because of how they've changed a lot. So yeah, exactly. There's a lot that's been changed. So I don't know in some aspects how things are going to play off. All I know is what characters aren't going to die and what characters are probably going to die. So maybe it's
but that ruins it for the viewer, though. As a viewer, you're
100%.
It's too predictable.
Yeah.
All that being said, we can go quickly around the horn and just give what we rate this opener, and just a brief Goodwin, a brief I
mean, there's not a lot to talk about. This episode jumped the missile shark.
Yeah.
Oh, you started.
Well, I'll start off. I'll start off with you, Goodwin. What would you say about this? And
it jumped the missile shark. That's it. I mean, there's nothing. It undoes so much of the good faith that you did in the first season. There's a bunch of time filler and bad pacing and questionable direction decisions, and oh my god, look, it's the game. You remember the game? Sure. This says I haven't been this deflated for a second season in quite a while.
Yeah. Nadia, your thoughts?
If this was my introduction to Arcane, I would have been out. If this was the first episode ever, I felt it was very stale. It didn't have any impact. It's just a video game cutscenes. That's all it was. And to be honest, I don't even like the next 2 episodes. So I'm hoping in the next arc we get, it improves, but I have very little hope for it.
Find
on
out soon.
Saturday.
Oh,
on
ye with little
Saturday.
faith.
I know.
Nick, your thoughts? What would you rate this opening, you guys? Goodwin and Nadia, what would you rate it out of 10?
Give us a number.
Yeah.
I-
4 maybe.
Yeah, on its own, maybe a 5, but because of the betrayal of what you set up before and just how disappointing it is. I mean, personally, it's like maybe a 2. It is shit. It is shit.
Oh.
It is a shit
Yeah.
episode.
I don't care about it. I love season 1, and even if you don't play the game, you can enjoy the show. It's just that's the brilliance of it. It's a complete story from start to finish. It's beautiful. It's well done. This is just again video game cutscene, very stale, no character depth. Don't care about anything. I could give two shits. Like I'll watch it because I love hanging out with you guys. But if this next arc is gonna be as bad as this one, I don't know.
Nick, your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously a lackluster episode. There were a couple semi-decent parts, a lot of missed opportunities, not even including the animation or the music or anything like that. I would probably see or say rating-wise it's at best maybe a 5 out of 10. And obviously because of what we know in the third episode, it's the only thing that kind of explains or accentuates the things that happen in the first episode. But it's like that shouldn't even happen to begin with. There should have been a completely different written story there. Things should have been completely changed, and they didn't do that. And I think that's why most of us agree like they were put in a corner that they just didn't know what to do, and it's unfortunate that way. But yeah, I'd say a 5 out of 10. I do think that Act 2 will be better, but that's just maybe pre-hype estimation because of my boy Warwick coming.
Wait, which one is Warwick?
He's the who's afraid of the big bad wolf.
Oh,
he's a giant chem wolf that Singe creates.
He's not the reanimated Vander, is he? Which one's that?
No, I don't think they're doing that. I hope not. If they make Vander work, I'll be okay. So when we get to episode 4, I'll be pissed. If they do that, I will. I will rage. I'll rage harder than Jay. How about I'll just put it.
You'll have to take a number.
Yeah, Leon, your thoughts there, young lad.
I'm actually very in line with Nick here. Don't get me wrong. I know there are objective issues with this episode. I still had fun watching it, specifically on the second watch through after I'd seen all 3 episodes. I am in this space where like I could call it a 5. I don't know if I'm calling it a 5 because of retroactively watching it after seeing the first 3, which is a net negative. But for whatever reason, I do think there is still something here. First of all, even this being what it is still a step up from the vast majority of modern things we get, which I know is an unfair thing to say, but it's the reality of the world we live in with entertainment. And I think there's enough care that leaves me wanting the rest of the arcs, episodes 4 through 9. So maybe it's just my naivete and cautious optimism, but I'm going to go with a 5, and there's still something here. But obviously a notable step down from season 1, and we'll see what happens.
Niet?
So season 1 consistently, like for me, balanced and paired character dynamics with the story, themes, and world building. The visuals and style were just a cherry on top of the character and stories that we got. Here, the character-driven storytelling is gone. It's replaced with contrivances and plot points for the sake of plot points, video game cutscenes, and music videos. This episode did the impossible. It made me not care about the characters and relationships that were built in season 1. It feels like they're all stuck in arrested development. The story is trying to spin its wheels slowly, and the characters are circling their old internal conflicts from season 1 without any sense of growth and progression. And the dialogue's beginning to flirt with exposition and the melodramatic. I'll give it a generous 4.5 out of 10.
Wow. Okay. And of course, Platoon, sir.
Oh god, I almost want to give it 2 different ratings. It's an Arcane 1, which is to say it's the worst of all of the episodes of Arcane there have been.
Agreed.
By the high standards the show has set, and so the standards we know it's capable of, this is terrible. By the conventional standard, which is, compared to most other modern things that come out, I probably would say it'd be really boring and say about 5. I think there are just objective problems in it that are problems in any show and that you see in other shows, and you call them out as problems in other shows, and they bring the rating of any other show down. The problem with this episode is that it's nothing special, whereas Arcane has become so beloved because it was always special throughout season 1. So, and I don't really know how much repair work can be done. It's a wasted episode as much as anything. So much of it just doesn't need to happen. There are more efficient means of getting to the same point, which would allow more character work to be done. Just very, very disappointing by objective standards and Arcane standards. So a 1 and a 5 at the same time.
Yeah, and I would go right probably in the middle of 3.5 to 4. I just was very, very disappointed. Even some of the animation, they kind of cheated some of the animation. The music just didn't hit the marks. I didn't like the time jumps, like the sped up, like a couple little time jumps there. The slow motion, like get the fuck away from slow motion, please. Like, please, when it comes to action,
Zack Snyder lives rent free in your fucking head.
Dude,
the man has become synonymous with bad slow motion.
They did a scene. They did a scene with slow motion, and then like not even 3 seconds later, it's another slow motion part. Like it's just
Have you not seen Rebel Moon?
Yeah, like it's just like
I rest my
it's
case.
like, oh, like enough. And then I wanted more. I wanted to know more about Jinx and Vi. Like I wanted to know that story. Like I wanted, like they were the main like characters of the series. So like, what happened? Why are we getting away from that? Just to plug all these other characters. So yeah, 3.5. Zach, I'm gonna get to you because I know you got your picture there, and I want to hear your rating and everything. So
Yeah, I give it a 2. I give it a 2. I was pretty disappointed. I mean, like I said, I give a lot of credit to the episode. I don't hate it. I just Platoon said it. He's like, it's the lowest rated episode out of all of them total. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to watch that again, honestly. And but again, I don't hate it. I was really shocked at the directions that they were taking with it. I came up with 3 scenarios that were 10 times better. I mean, dude, like all of us on the last episode of Arcane for season 1, we were all talking about hypotheticals. Wouldn't it be like it'd be so great if we did this and that and this and that, and we had some really banger alternatives, and yet not a single one of them was here, and so therefore it's a 2. I got a pencil drawing for this. It will be ready to show, fully inked, with the completing drawing for next week.
Oh, that's
wow.
dope. I like Jinx.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm going up. You're gonna see
Very cool.
You're gonna see the gloves powering up. There's a lot of that green smoke, or the smoke that Jinx likes to use, and string it up. And she's got like 2
Nice.
bombs in her hands. It's kind of like a Clash of the Sisters is what I want to do. But yeah, that'll be inked next week. That'll be ready to go. And the drawing as well for the new episode.
It's not awesome. It's not that they hate for all this. It's they've gotten away from what they established.
We're not
Like,
mad. We're just disappointed.
We're disappointed. Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Yeah,
Except Emperor Goodwin. He's mad.
Speak
He's
for
pissed.
yourselves.
yeah.
It's also changed the lore. It sucks. Like everything.
Well, let's quickly go around the horn and find out what everyone's got going on this weekend on their channels and everything, and then we'll wrap this up. Goodwin, where are you this weekend? Where
be
people
on
can find you?
Adam Gray's B-roll stage. B-sides will be, we're doing Noirvember. We're covering interesting public domain noir movies. It's a respite from the normal terribleness that he tortures me with. Then Saturday, Niet with Alien 3. Sunday on Wayfarer Project, we'll be finishing up Blade Runner and how the music of Vangelis is used to set so much mood within that, and then who knows after that.
Yeah. Nadia, what you got going on this weekend?
Honestly, forget about me. I just want everybody to go subscribe to Nick's channel. The Plot Strikes Back, please. Let's just get him to 500, please. I'm everywhere, so you don't need to worry about it. I'll be somewhere, but please go subscribe to him. Both him and Austin do an amazing job of breakdown. So, and they're on Spotify and Apple as well. That's where they started. So
It's true.
So Nick, you want to plug your stuff now that Nadia's plugged it for you?
Yeah, as far as where I'll be, I'll throw that. But yes, I appreciate the love and support. I'll be on Nadia's stream tomorrow with Yat, Zax, Julie, a couple other peeps to talk about From episode 8, season 3, and then Monday I think I'm gonna be on with Leon for the first time.
You are.
So that's
God
gonna be
help
awesome.
you.
God help you. Yeah, God help you.
You say
be
that,
sure to
but
turn
Nadia,
in.
you got my
The
show
reason-
more than almost anybody on this panel. What the fuck?
God help me. I don't know why I do it. The devil tells me to.
I didn't tell you to go on there.
I know. I don't remember calling it.
Yeah.
He's my
Leon.
lofty brother. I gotta support him.
Leon,
Nice
what you got
thing.
going on this weekend there, brother?
Well, tomorrow is my late night show, Neon Leon.
Mhm.
It's going to be an absolute blast. I've sort of changed the format. It's now a one-on-one show where I will always have one guest that rotates out instead of doing a solo show. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Come check that out. It happens at midnight Central Standard Time. And then Saturday, got that double stream going with Niet. We were doing Alien 3, which I'm so excited to do. And then after that, SNH. Then Sunday, late night with the Gooch, baby. You love to see it. You love to do it. And beyond that, just hopefully crank out some videos. And man, just thanks for having me on. It's nice to be here amongst friends, despite the fact that this didn't quite go the way we wanted to. But here's the hope, and Arc 2 is a lot better.
Yes.
And if not, you got content for 2.5 months on this, bro.
I know. Niet, what you got going on, bro? I know everyone's kind of mentioned your Saturday show, but plug your shit, dude. Like, plug it
So
away.
unfortunately, I won't be able to make Nadia's From stream. I'm
Yeah.
working on finalizing my novel, also working on a massive video for covering Silo season 1 and like a 2-hour, maybe even 3-hour Warhammer 40k lore video. So
Sick.
Oh,
a lot of my time right now. But yeah, Alien 3 this Saturday evening, late night with the Gooch on Sunday, and that's about it.
That's like
plus-
Silo season 2. Is that starting today? Tomorrow.
Today, yeah,
Today, I guess.
tomorrow.
No,
depending on
is it
where you
starting
are.
Tomorrow.
oh,
Yeah.
wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
I'm
why I've
looking
got-
forward to that as
Season 1
well.
yet.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Me too. I love season 1.
Yeah,
Also-
I didn't know you were into
Program
Wonder. We have to talk.
Also,
yeah,
Niet dropped a video, and if you guys, we have 188 people watching. If you guys could sit there and go check out his
Gooch.
newest video,
The
the
Heretic
Heretic. Yes,
Heretic.
great
very good.
review. Go check it out, please. The guy is awesome at doing these videos, so go check it out. It'd be
Thanks,
greatly
Gooch.
appreciated. Absolutely, brother. And of course, Platoon. What you got going on? You're like the busiest man I think I know, besides you and Hypno and a few others. Like you're busy.
It's the curse of doing multiple online type jobs. I don't. What is coming up next? Gladiator 2, I think, is out today, tomorrow. So I will be taking a look at that. I got bored midweek and started scripting the introduction, having not seen the movie, which means it's going to be a long introduction about like Roman history and the uses and abuses of it in modern life and what men's obsession with Rome tells us about the male psyche, etc. I'm also now fighting the urge to split from that and do Arcane as well. It might be both. Who knows? Definitely Gladiator, possibly an Arcane video, and we'll see what happens with Silo as well, because I am looking forward cautiously to that one. But that'll be it from me, I think.
Yeah, I'm curious with Silo. Damn,
Yeah,
I didn't know it was coming
concerns
out.
about that.
Well, yeah, second season with anything is always a concern, right?
Yes,
Dude,
as we
just
just
Prophecy
found.
is also on Sunday as well.
Should I just binge the first season? Is it that good?
I liked it.
Yeah.
It is really
Silo,
good.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
lags
a
a little
lot
bit in the
different
middle,
than-
but it's
Yes,
it picks
it
up
is.
again.
Should I
think
read the
what's-
books first, or can I just go into the show?
You don't need to. I'm in the process of reading the first book, Wall, at the moment. But what I was going to say about why I have, why I think that season 2 is going to be fine is that it is supported by the trilogy written by
Yes.
Hugh. So I think it should be fine.
I mean, I would recommend the books. The books are interesting. I read them after I'd seen season 1, so you don't need to read them before you go in, and it probably will help if you don't, because who knows what they'll do.
Changes.
And Zach, for everyone that's out there, and I'm going to plug Zach quickly here. If you want a piece of his, he's leveled up in his artwork, and man, I've seen some work he's done for Nadia there, and it's like wowza, like
it is amazing,
man. Oh shit, it's the best shit he's ever done, in my opinion. But go check out him on Twitter, and Zach, I'll let you plug that. But like, he's got artwork for sale that he's done during these streams, and they're incredible. And I encourage you to go DM him on Twitter there and buy a piece of artwork from him. It'd be greatly appreciated. Zach, go ahead, brother. Speak.
I mean, yeah, you pretty much said it all. I'm working on Niet's thing. And honestly, I'm yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah,
I said, praising man, it always gets you. I heard it.
What if Bex not beat you?
You literally said that. That's not even a Bex like makeup. You said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I'm trying to wrap it up, and I apologize, should have been wrapped up, but nah, the thing that I'm working on for Niet's, I've had a lot of fun. I'm close to getting it done. Like, I'm pretty much the other halfway, the last half, and the last half isn't that bad.
Absolutely. You've done an amazing job. I can't wait for people to see what you've put together too. It's
Oh
amazing.
yeah,
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It is gorgeous. Also, I want to say thank you to the panel. You guys, I appreciate you jumping on and being a part of this. We got 3 arcs to get through. Sorry, Platoon. And people in the chat, you guys are fucking awesome. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we're going to do episode 2. So come join us again next week. And then everyone on Rumble, thank you for watching on Rumble. That was awesome. We had a lot of people on Rumble. That's great. I love you. And if you are looking for a shirt, Stay Gucci t-shirt or a Diabolical Souls t-shirt, the links is in the description below. Plus, let me bring it up quickly. Dang it. Yeah, like the shirts are selling. People are saying they're comfortable. I'm wearing mine right now, actually. And they're great. They're super, super comfortable. And I encourage you to go if you like,
Gentlemen, buy your
brand.
girl a Stay Gucci tank top for Christmas.
Yes.
She will be happy.
I mean, I think there's some prime advertising real estate. If you just send one to Nick, then he'll be wearing those on all those streams. I mean,
100%.
that's some serious product placement there.
Yeah, and you like
do that.
and don't be jealous if your woman does buy a Stay Gucci t-shirt or a Diabolical Souls t-shirt, and it's like, and I just happen to say, your woman's sleeping with Gucci, like but it's just the shirt. It's not actually sleeping with me. So like, but yeah, go ahead.
Extra.
Yeah. I see.
The members only.
But no, these are like, they're selling quite a bit. So it'd be, if you want to buy a shirt, go to the link and buy one. And that'll be it for me. This weekend, I'll be on Niet. I'll be on the Alien 3. I'll be on Badgers tomorrow. I'll be on Nerd Wars tomorrow on Erwin's. I will be doing the late night with Gooch. This weekend, this Sunday night, we have Atreus from the Black Street, podcast. He's coming on. We're going to have a blast on that stream on Sunday night. So swing on by Sunday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. It's the late night with Gooch and gang, and we have a blast, and we talk about all things that are happening in pop culture. And so all that being said, the mighty words of Gooch. Stay Gucci,
Stay Gucci,
everyone.
my friends.